This was a tough interview because of the season. We're talking about this disappointing season and where they're going to go forward. And there's going to be some, I think there's going to be some major moves.
We're joined this week by one of our favorites, whether it's at the ballpark or here on the podcast, Keith Hernandez.
Yeah, we absolutely love Keith. Not just a great first baseman, but a great analyst, and that's what makes him a great podcast guest. It's, I think, good timing, even though the Mets had a terrible, terrible season. But Pete, we're going to ask him all the tough questions, so it should be interesting.
Yeah, we haven't had him on since the collapse was completed and the Mets didn't get in the playoffs. So we'll ask him about that. We'll ask him about what he thinks about what the Mets should do with Pete Alonso. I'm sure we'll ask him about his contemporary Don Mattingly and a lot else. John and I will talk a lot about the World Series at the top of the show. We'll play hit and error at the bottom if you stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman. We're both in Los Angeles. If people are watching this on the New York Post Sports YouTube, John has done, of course, yeoman's work as always. He's broken into Dodger Stadium early in the morning. He's in the press box. The game, let's say that the first pitch of the game is well in the distance for Game 5. I'm talking to you from a hotel room in Los Angeles. I'll be joining John there soon. And that means the World Series is still going on. We're tied at 2-2 through 4 games. And John, it's a compelling World Series. The Dodgers were heavy favorites in this World Series, and the Blue Jays are just Nats with a G in front of it, not Washington Nats. GNATS. Had to be even more so in Game 4 without their leadoff hitter and spiritual leader George Springer with. I mentioned in my column, and I think I might have mentioned to you downstairs as we were waiting for the Blue Jay clubhouse to open up, Bo Bichette looks like he's running like Giancarlo Stanton while carrying Aaron Judge. Like they have some real dents right now, and they're fighting, and it's tied 2-2. And I wonder, big picture, what you think of where the series is at.
Yeah, I mean, it could go either way. I think it's 50-50. I think last week we talked about how the underdog often wins. It's 7 games, not a lot of games. I know people think it is because sometimes we have a 5 game series or a 3 game series. We used to have a 1 game series. 7 feels maybe like a lot. I don't know. We've seen so many upsets. The Cincinnati Reds in 90 and 88. The A's also lost that one. But I mean, I'm going back a few years, but it does feel like it's kind of a crapshoot. 7 games. And let's face it, Toronto's a good team. They won 94 games. They beat out the Yankees. They killed the Yankees in the division series, outscoring them 34-19. This is a good team, and they are a resilient team. They were down 2-0 to Seattle. They were down 3-2 to Seattle. Came back, won that series. I mean, Ohtani looked like, he is the world beater. He is the greatest player of all time, but he looked unbeatable in Game 3, and they came back and they beat him. Now, course, it's not so easy to pitch if you're on base 9 times. And I think he was in the trainer's room. I think he was not in perfect shape, but no excuses. You got a $400 million payroll. Blue Jays are a very good team. Vlad Guerrero's a superstar. Stats are actually better than Ohtani's offensively throughout October. I mean, he doesn't pitch, so I mean, he's not nobody's Ohtani, but Vlad's been amazing, and these other players that they have, these complementary players, whether it be Clement, Lucas, they're solid players.
Yeah, John, I thought, and I need to stop thinking that when the Dodgers won that epic game, and we should probably talk about that game a little, an 18-inning game. Freeman wins it with a walk-off homer as he won it with a grand slam walk-off against the Yankees in the first game in Dodger. Game 3 was the first game in Dodger Stadium of this World Series. He won Game 1 of Dodger Stadium in 2024 with a walk-off grand slam against the Yankees. That the combination of that, the length of the game, and what felt like it was going to be, oh, this is going to be the World Series of Ohtani, right? He went 4 for 4, became the second player, the first since 1906 to have 4 extra base hits in a World Series. At that point, the Blue Jays said, you know what? This guy is lit dynamite. Let's not get anywhere near him. And they either intentionally or unintentionally walked him 5 times the rest of the way. And he, as you mentioned, he reached base 9 times. And I was just like, oh, between the combination of the exhaustion and losing Springer and the emotional toll of being so close to winning that World Series and Ohtani taking over. I know baseball is not a momentum game, that players are good because of the serial nature and the inventory of moving on. And yet I felt like, wow, that was an overhand right to the jaw. And so I can't tell you how impressed I was by the Blue Jays coming out and kind of beating Ohtani twice. Bieber out pitches him and Bieber strikes him out twice and Ohtani doesn't get a hit. And now it's a best of three with the Blue Jays owning the home field again because they got game 6 and 7. We know we're going back to Toronto. The Blue Jays are an impressive lot. The length of talent and the fortitude is pretty darn good.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly would hurt to lose that an 18-inning game. And I appreciate the fact it was an hour shorter than the one we were here in 2018 for, right?
Yeah.
Because of the pitch clock. But still a long game. And I don't remember if it was Bassett or Scherzer. You can imagine either one I'm saying. It was like a kick in the you-know-whats to lose
Yeah.
that game. It was bad. It was terrible. And but it doesn't mean that you're going to lose the series. It's still only one game. What 2018, Boston, I think, lost that game, right? And they ended up winning that series. So it's one game. It's certainly not good to stay here for 6.5 hours and lose. But still only one game, and this team has been through it before. To lose your first two at home in that LCS against Seattle, which to me, I thought Seattle was the more talented team. Maybe I was wrong about that, but to come back from that's even tougher, I think.
Yeah, John, I wonder if I could highlight two guys. Let's call them the killer bees. When you watch from a distance, and I think we try not to be myopic and just care about the two New York teams. We both work at the network. We're talking about all 30 teams all the time. But obviously, while based in New York, we're at a lot of Met and Yankee games. We are familiar with the work of Chris Bassett. He was a starting pitcher for the Mets. He's been a very, very good, consistent, durable starting pitcher for a long time. He's got in the bullpen and he's helped influence games this postseason. I think he finally gave up a hit as a relief pitcher yesterday. He's been strong. And the other guy who stood out for me because he has some high-end skills, the stuff that he could do well, he could do really well, is Addison Barger. Who's got a great, not a good arm, a great arm. He threw a guy out in game 3 and really has some thump in his bat and plays hard and seems to play smart. He kind of feels to me like the best of that secondary group you were mentioning before of the Clements and the Lucases, etc. If you want, go to the guys you like. But those two have stood out for me as kind of rising to the moment. If you believe the Dodgers have better talent, you need players on the Blue Jays to rise up, and those two guys feel like something to me.
Yeah, I mean, they're complementary players that have been better, no question about that. Barger is a guy with terrific talent. He was a guy who was made to be a ball player. He understood it. Like in the 8th grade, his family built I don't know if it was a stadium, but a field in the backyard. I don't know how big their yard. It must be pretty big. When he was in 9th grade, was homeschooled. That's a tough road to take, right? I mean, you could be homeschooled and not become a major league player, and then what do? But he did it, and so give him credit. He does swing from the heels. He doesn't really have a two-strike approach, but he's very talented. He hits the ball very hard. He throws it unbelievably. I think at 98-mile-an-hour throw from the outfield the other day. So he's very talented. Bassett, I talked to him after the game about whether he now wants to be a reliever. And he reminded me that he came up as an elite reliever and transitioned because he could do starting. And he thinks it's more valuable to be a starter in the long run. So he'll be back as a free agent as a starter. But, he's been great in the pull. You're right. He's given up that one hit. He's, I think, 8 strikeouts in 6 innings, something like that, 8 or 9. And that's been a great move. I look Toronto. Their front office was kind of under the gun coming into this year, and they didn't make signings that were all stars. Right, Santander is now hurt, but he had a terrible year. Jimenez has been good at shortstop. He's obviously a terrific defensive player, but he hasn't had a big year. Hoffman now hot and doing great in the postseason, but he didn't have a big year. So, it's come up great for them because all these guys who are complementary players are really playing well. Can't say that about the Dodgers. They got a center fielder right now. What is he, 4 for 50? Something like that was an estimate. Paez, I've never seen a guy who's replaced for a pinch hitter and a defensive replacement. They bring in Dean, and he starts every game. I'm not really sure why he does, other than they say Edman can't play center, but he did play center, right? He came in and they moved him to center at the end of the game.
I think it was an
Go with a
emergency.
guy who's batting 80,
Yeah. Yeah, Edmund obviously went in the 18 inning game because they needed somebody. Sometimes they move Pages over to right field and have Dean in center field for the full defense. I think the Dodgers do like Pages' defense, but I agree with you. His offense has been so bad that I do wonder someplace here, game 5, 6, and if we go 7, if they have to put somebody else in just to turn the lineup over to
Right.
Otani to have
It's a big
some
disadvantage to
people
have the
on.
guy. Right, Otani's got 8 home runs in October to have a guy who's never on base. Right, he has an on base percentage of about 100. Right,
Yeah.
you can't have him batting in front of Otani. I would put anybody else in there, but it's not not my choice. They do like his defense, not as much as Dean, but they like his defense. I think they need to figure somebody else out in center field.
Yeah, John, I wonder if the way to wrap up this segment is we were in the ballpark for both of the longest World Series games in the history of the sport, the two 18-inning games at Dodger Stadium. One ended by Max Muncy with a homer off for Nathan Eovaldi. The other night off of Brendan Little, Freddie Freeman going deep. Um, I'll tell you, obviously, let's do the what will resonate with you. So obviously it will be Otani. I wonder if you could pick out something else. For me, it was Yamamoto walking out to the bullpen because we had a report on Fox that Klein was going to pitch one more inning, and then they were going to bring in a reliever, which turns out a position player, which turns out it was going to be Miguel Rojas. And knowing in the back of my mind that a World Series game that was in play in the 18th inning, a position player was about to go in, to see Yamamoto begin to go out to the bullpen, kind of like you do remember that this means a lot to players and they're putting a lot on the line when their bodies, this is the time in the year where their bodies are most broken and exhausted. And Yamamoto, that literally on one day's rest, he had thrown 100 plus pitches in a complete game. He's walking out there. And I don't know if you saw the video. I thought it was a great video when Freeman hits the homer. Everyone goes to dogpile Freeman except for Sasaki and Otani go running down the left field line to hug Yamamoto, understanding what Yamamoto was just
Right.
about to do for the team. It will really resonate to me in the Otani game. That I wonder if anything sticks out for you.
Well, what'll stick out for me is they needed to score because you don't want to put Yamamoto in that game knowing he's your best starting pitcher and he's coming up to pitch in a couple days. To me, they had to score. So Freddie Freeman does it again. The thick marine air, as they say here in
Yeah.
LA, was holding up some balls that were hit far. I think Will Smith had one, Teoscar had one. I think Freeman had one earlier, didn't quite go. This one went out by it's about 3 feet to dead center. Freeman, unbelievably clutch, second walk-off World Series homer, first guy to ever do that. So to me, Freeman stands out. I know that maybe he's not quite the player he was, but I mean, this guy is on the field taking practicing his fielding drills every day. It's unbelievable. To me, what stands to me about the Dodgers is Freeman and Betts. They are the hardest workers you will ever see. And when you have your best play, I mean, obviously Otani's the best player in the world, but you have your best players working like this, that really sets a great tone for this team. And that is, one of the reasons, not just the 400 million spent, that this team is so great. The other reason is, of course, their two best players this year are the Japanese, we say imports. Obviously, Otani had been here 6 years already. Otani and Yamamoto are their most valuable players. And I mean, this team is an incredible team. Does it mean it's going to win for sure? It doesn't mean that. No. I think Snell will be better tonight as we do this. And we'll see because he's on his regular rest rather than extra rest. His fastball command was not good, but it's a crapshoot. It really is. A 3-game series now. I think a 7 is a crapshoot. And look, Toronto's better than we gave him credit for.
Yeah, no, Toronto's impressive. We obviously know the star power of the Dodgers is impressive. You watch Yamamoto, you understand why the Mets and the Yankees were pushing 300 million in the Mets case, the same exact offer as the Dodgers, 12 at 325 million into the pot to try to get him. You see just how talented he is. And on the subject of those Mets, one of our friends of the show, frequent visitor here, Keith Hernandez, will talk about the Mets and more if you stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman. John, we're joined by somebody who's one of our favorites to deal with, whether we're at the ballpark or doing the podcast, and he's a frequent visitor on the podcast, a friend of the podcast. Keith Hernandez, do I actually have to do bio? One of the best first basemen in Major League history and part of an iconic broadcasting crew with Gary Cohen and Ron Darling. Keith Hernandez, thank you for joining us on the show.
Always, guys. My pleasure.
Keith, we haven't had, though you've joined us, thank you as always, you've joined us frequently. We haven't had you since the end of perhaps the most disappointing season in Met history. It's certainly in the short list with like 2007 and maybe another one or two. Go where you want, Keith, on this. It's there were high expectations coming off of what happened in the first year of the Stearns-Mendoza administration, where they got to Game 6 of the NLCS, and where they were in mid-June with the best record in the sport, and then they just spent 4 years slowly falling into quicksand with an anvil, if that's possible, and somehow didn't make even the sixth seed in the National League. What'd you think of it all by the end?
Well, I think that what was the big collapse where they bested was it 2006 or seven that they outdid
Seven.
7 they outdid the Phillies, the 64 Phillies.
Yeah.
But that to me was more shocking because it happened so quickly, basically in the last almost month, 3.5 weeks of the season or 3 weeks of the season. This one, you certainly saw it coming because of their, how they played. They had was it the third worst or fourth worst record since June when they had the best record, as you mentioned. I was always worried about the pitching. I was worried about Holmes holding up, and I was surprised that he went that deep in innings pitched. And he's a kind of guy that was all out. He's used to pitching in the ninth inning with the game on the line. And I just was the fact that he hadn't started in so long. When was it going to catch up to him? And it did. Senga has always been a little brittle, and he got hurt. And that infamous, I hate it, that oblique injury. That they just it's become a part of the game, and it's when you have an oblique, it is 2 months, and that's a third of the season, and that kills a team. And of course, I'm talking about Manaea. You can't project injuries, and it was a group effort because this was a team that didn't hit in the clutch pretty much through July. I remember in July they were hitting 218 with runners in scoring position. They wound up the last 2 months to make up for it, where they wound up over 250, which was remarkable, a good comeback for them. But this was certainly more disappointing. I think that is the word, the definition of the season, because so many guys make the playoffs, and if you don't, you're not very good. And the fact with the Soto signing and what the last season, how they went got eliminated in the end in the championship series, greater expectations. And so you saw it coming. I was worried. I mean, I got COVID and I didn't work the 9 games after the Texas series at home, the last homestand, and I missed the next 2 series at home, and I missed Chicago because I got COVID, believe it or not. And I only had the Miami series, but I've had a bad feeling about that road trip. Number one, they're playing a Cub team that's a decent team, a good team, playoff team. And Miami, who for some reason that team has just been a thorn in the Mets side. And I just had they're not a bad team, by the way. They were young and full of pep. And the Mets, all they had to do was win 2 out of 3 and they're in, and they didn't. And I had a bad feeling about that road trip, and it happened. So it's disappointing. It was just a lot of the fact everybody wants to talk about the money and the payroll. Okay, fine, not getting there, but to not just purely on the baseball sense, if you don't make the playoffs, I mean, there's 6 teams that get in out of the what 15, and if you don't get in, I mean, come on, it's not a good year.
Terrible. It
Yeah.
was a
So,
terrible year. It was awful. I give
but
you credit. When did you start to sense this? Because they were 45 and 24 on June 12th or June 13th. And I think everybody figured they were one of the better teams in baseball. I mean, to me, this collapse, I mean, you can rate collapses ever you want, but to me, this is brutal that they were terrible over the last, I mean, almost 4 months of the season. When did you see a sign? Because they're not only were they the best record, they had the best ERA in baseball. Uh, I mean, was there
yeah.
an earlier sign that you saw that we didn't?
Well, um, certainly going forward out of spring training with the injuries, that and then Senga was pitching so well. Uh, so when you lose your 3 starters, that's a definitely a red flag right there. But it didn't really show. I think I mentioned, in the first game in Miami in the Open, because I looked back and they had made in the last 12 games, which included the series at home, they made 9 errors. And in the month of September, they made a double digit in errors, high teens. And you can't play that way and win. The defense was, and just the mental mistakes, the guys getting picked off, and uh, it was just a total collapse. Everybody wants to blame the pitching, but they just didn't get it done. And in that last road trip, they did not hit in the clutch and when it was needed, and no one picked up the flag. Pete was the one guy. Pete had a tough had a bad July, I believe. He hit under 200. That was his only bad month, and unfortunately, that's when things started to fall apart. And Nimmo had a bad 2 months in that stretch, July and August, and I believe, and everything just collectively started falling apart, and it was just confounding that with that kind of talent that they were finding ways to lose against teams that they were much better than. I mean, the Reds on paper, and paper, what does that mean? Bob Gibson told me once, "Oh, he's got potential." You know what potential means? He hasn't done it yet. I'll never forget that when I heard that from Bob Gibson he told me, I mean, you got potential, you haven't done it yet. Oh, thanks for the confidence boost, Bob.
You did okay. You did all right. Your potential work.
Keith, Keith, you've mentioned like 6 teams making the playoffs, and obviously, if that many teams made the playoffs, your late '80s Mets team would have made it a lot more often than it did. But I wonder when you think you're good and you don't even get in, what the regret? Because I think that this team should have great regret and look back. There's seasons are precious. If you're lucky, you get to play 8, 10, 12, 14 years. Like, a full season is a large percentage of everything. I wonder how, like, you even think about it as somebody who probably sat around in 87, like even 85, you weren't able to catch the Cardinals quite yet. Like, when you leave it on the table, when you think you're probably good enough to not leave it on the table, what the level of regret is.
Um, I don't know if it's regret, because you can't tell me that everybody didn't put 100% in, and they didn't. I hate this term. These are the new terms. Execute. I love pitchers that say I didn't execute. No, you did. Just I made a bad pitch. I don't want to hear execute. I hate that term. Anyway, I'm off the beaten track. When we lost in '85, we won 98 games and we go home. That was disappointment, not regret. I mean, that was a great season, and just fell short. And '87, we fell short again. We won 90 something games, mid 90s, I believe. So it wasn't like we finished
Uh,
under 500.
Keith, can I jump in? Because maybe the right analogy is when it really starts. Is '89 the right analogy where like you think you're going to be really good and it turns out you're not really good?
I felt in '89, Joel, that we were starting to come apart at the seams internally. That Lenny was unhappy. Mookie for the first time, Mookie was such a consummate professional, and Mookie said he had had enough, and I just felt we were coming apart at the seams in '89. So I did not go into that season feeling confident, and that was my last year, and I was really I got hurt, but I missed most of the season. But to have a team, if we had finished under 500 in any of those years in the '80s, that would have been, you have to look yourself in the mirror. One of those collectively. So not so much regret, uh, just what did we do? And what do we do going forward? So, I mean, they've got to be very disappointed with such high hopes. And this team, when they play great, they're rah, rah, rah. And then when the things go bad, they don't handle it well. When I watch in the dugout, they don't handle it well. They're probably not going to like me saying that, but that's my opinion. And I'm there, and I do 110 games, and I'm watching, and I'm seeing how they react on the field in the dugout. And they've got to be more this way, not down in the valley, up high when things are going great. You got to pull together when things go bad. And I just didn't think that this team was as together tight as the teams with Buck when they won 100 games. Was it 3 years ago? They were collectively together as a group last year when they got hot, but they got hot, and when things going great, it's fun to come to the ballpark. Can't wait to put the uniform on and get 7:30. Let's go get them 7 o'clock. It's when things go bad, that's when you've got to pull together, and they they didn't do it this year, and for various reasons, and you just can't pin it on the pitching.
Yeah, you're talking about the clubhouse, and you are there 110 games, and you are one of those TV analysts who is in the clubhouse. You get there early, and you see stuff. I'm wondering. I mean, to me, it was noticeable they didn't seem completely together in that clubhouse. I mean, I think that Soto is a great guy. I think that Lindor is a great guy. They're there together. They're going to be there together for at least the next decade. Do you think there was a clubhouse issue overall for this team? And maybe I'm the one who saw this, or maybe I'm not. I don't know. It felt like Soto. I don't. They didn't butt heads, but Soto and Lindor are the two key guys to this team going forward. We don't know what's going to happen to Pete. Should they be? It felt like they weren't really close. I mean, am I crazy? I don't know if you noticed that as well, but could that have some effect on the performance of the team? Now, individually, they did great, but that was my observation. I never saw them speaking.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I am not in the clubhouse, particularly at home, that much because they got that second room back there, and
No.
they got meetings. I mean, if I had to go to an hour hitting meeting before every game and go over pitchers, that would drive me friggin' nuts. And they're gone for an hour. You go in the clubhouse and where are the hitters? And oh, we got the hitter meeting. It lasts an hour. I mean, it's just the, I wouldn't enjoy that. I would probably not pay attention. I would probably drift in the middle of the meeting. If they ask me a question, I have to go, huh? What? Anyway, on the road, I can see more. I did not. I can't say one way or the other if there was any friction between the two of them. They're two different personalities. Uh, Lindor, I'll say one thing. Lindor's at his locker, and he's very out vocal and he's gregarious, where Juan is very serious about his business and stays to himself. He's much like Marte, and I think that's why he and Marte kind of connected. And as you noticed in June when Juan, remember he was having a hard time in April and May adjusting, and I'm up there going, "Hey, you're going to be here for what, 15 years, whatever it is. Uh, you're not like I got traded to a last place team. You're getting traded to a contending team, and so it's not like you were sent to the salt mines. But I think Marte helped him, and I don't think Marte's probably not going to come back next year, and he's going to lose that little friendship there. Um, I can't say one way or the other that there was any friction between the two of them.
I
I have
wouldn't say friction.
no.
It's more like I didn't see them interacting much. That's all.
Well, Juan's kind of a solitary guy, and Lindor is the exact opposite. You got it's like Carter and myself, although I was gregarious. You know, when Carter got traded over, I remember I was thrilled because I knew with our young staff he was the piece that we needed. I hated to give up Hubie Brooks because Hubie was coming into his own, but you're not going to get Gary Carter for nothing. And I knew coming in that the press would be watching to see how Gary and I got along because Gary was basically was like when you played against him, he was easy to dislike and with all the rah rah and but as a teammate he was fabulous and he played hard every day with pain. I saw what he had to go through at pregame with his knees and his hustle and his desire to win, and we got along fine. We didn't go out together, but when we were at the ballpark we were working together, we were teammates, and I wasn't going to let any friction. I can remember the home run he hit off Neil Allen on opening day in '85. I made sure I was the first one at home plate to greet him. And I did that on purpose because I just wanted to, I didn't want any issues where the media could say, well, Carter and Hernandez aren't getting along, and that creates friction in the club. And it never happened. I got along great with Gary.
Keith, if I was going to use an FR word, I would say they didn't have friction. They didn't have fraternity. There wasn't unity. Didn't feel together. That's what it was. Look, I'll ask you because again, you get tied to the player a lot because you're the two greatest first basemen in the history of the franchise. You mentioned Pete Alonso, and they do have a decision about Pete. The head of baseball operations, David Stearns, and I don't think accidentally at least about 10 times in his end of year press conference used the term run prevention.
Right.
And
Defense.
if you're going to talk run prevention, I know Pete tries hard and he has a skill, which is scooping, but he ain't going to help you too much on the run prevention side. So I wonder what you think is going to happen and what you think should happen with Pete.
You're not going to replace his bat, his power bat. To me, he is the second coming of Harmon Killebrew. Um, I said that on his rookie season. Plus the fact that he's a right-handed bat, and our lineup is better. We've got left-hand hitters in the middle there. Really, our lineup was top heavy, and not ours, the Mets was top heavy. The 1 through 4, and then the bottom half. Okay, they had to rely when they flipped the lineup. It was okay. They got to take advantage of this. They got top of the order. That's why I always kind of wanted them to have a ninth hitter. If Mullins would have hit, someone with speed in that 9 hole, it's another leadoff hitter that gets on base. Then that's when the lineup flips. Instead of the 9 flipping to 1, 8 flips to 9. That to me that would flip the order, and they had to take advantage of that. But you look at it, Lindor for some reason hit better left-handed than right-handed. He's a better right-hand hitter than a left-hand hitter. But that last year he hit better left-handed. Then you've got uh, Soto left, uh, Pete right, and then Nimmo left. You take Pete out of that lineup, where are you going to find the replacement? Where are you going to find 125 RBIs? As far as his defense, the fact that he scoops well, and even though he falls down, which is amazing to me, he falls down a lot. Um, he does scoop well, which is great for the other infielders to know that they don't have to throw a perfect throw over there. His range, if the ball gets by him, okay, so what? So what? He has a trouble throwing to first base to the pitcher. That's obviously, and it's almost like uh, Steve Sachs of having a hard time throwing to first base. It's basically the same thing. It's all up here, uh, and that has hurt. Uh, but to me, if he drives in 125 runs, in right-handed bat, I think they've got to sign him,
I'm
and
with you.
they got to sign Diaz too.
Yeah, I'm with you on Pete. I don't know how you replace him exactly. Right-handed bat, right? Alvarez has not been quite the power hitter yet. He's still very, very young. Could come up. Vientos really does not have a position with this team at this point. So I don't know how you replace a right-handed hitter like Pete when they are very heavily left-handed. Nimmo and Soto being two of their best offensive players, obviously. But we since we are on defense here, and you're the greatest first baseman defensively, along with Mattingly of all time. Most would actually say you're the best. Does Pete ever come to you? Is there anything? Because that is an issue that maybe it's the moving target because he's better throwing to second or to home or wherever. But to watch Vladimir Guerrero here as I have for two series, I mean, the guy's a confident thrower to any base at any time. It is a huge thing. Is there does he ever come to you? Can you help him with that throw, or is it? I mean, it's Steve Sax thing. He needs more of a psychiatrist than a first baseman to help him. What can we do? What can they do about Pete and the throwing to first?
Uh, no one's number one. No one's come to me to help Pete. So the last time I helped anybody was Todd Zeal, and that was when Bobby Valentine was the manager. So, um, to me, when I threw to first base, I always, when I turned, I got the ball, depending on how, if I had to throw overhand, I always tried to run to the bag and give him the underhand, and that's easy. The throw when you're in the hole, I would always turn and I would see where the pitcher was, and he'd always have his glove out, and I would throw it 5 yards ahead of him. So it's like I was a quarterback, so it was like me throwing a look into my wide receiver and a look in on my right side over the middle, and you got to throw over the top, and I would lead him 5 feet. And depending on the closeness of the play, is how hard I had to throw the ball because you want to get the ball there before he gets to the bag. So he has time. It's a tough play for the pitcher. I don't have the answer for Pete, but I think the main point to me is you're not going to find a bat like his, and he was clutch all year long. He was the one guy that drove in the big runs. He was super clutch, and well, in a team that struggled with men in scoring position, I just feel he's got to come back.
Keith, John mentioned the name Don Mattingly. Obviously, you have lots of ties to him. Also, you were contemporaries. You had very similar games. You were just the two best defensive first basemen I've ever seen. And you played at the same time against each other in New York. Lefty hitters, great contact hitters. Both had some power. Maybe Donnie a touch more because of his ballpark he played in. He finally made it to the World Series this
Yep.
year as a coach with the Blue Jays. You were blessed, right? You played on a couple of champions along the way. I wonder what you think about the bigger picture of fulfilling something like is there an emptiness if you don't at least experience the ultimate that you could experience in baseball?
It's too bad that Ernie Banks is not still alive. You can ask Ernie Banks that question, what a great player that he was, and he never got to the World Series. I'm sure that Don is thrilled to be in the World Series, and he's a part of it as a coach. But he's a player, and I'm sure it's very disappointing for Don never to get to the World Series. And it's never one person's fault. It's team effort. It's just if you don't get there. So yeah. So to me, it's great for Don, but it's got to be disappointed he didn't get there. I was always pulling for him to get in there, and it just didn't happen. Especially when he hurt his back. And as far as his defense, they didn't bunt in that league because of the DH. And I was able to show off, not show off, but show my bunt skills and my aggressiveness. And I think that if Don had been in the National League, Don would have been a terrific guy on the bunt as well. He had 9 Gold Gloves, and if he didn't get hurt, he probably would have. I got 11. He probably would have got 13 and been number one.
That's very interesting about the bunt. I hadn't considered that. He was absolutely fabulous.
Don was the thing about I liked about Don. He was no fancy Dan. He was just two hands, nothing. No frills. He was a blue collar, great fielding first baseman.
Absolutely. Well, and let me ask you about this now. I mean, I think everybody watching, listening wants to know what your situation is. I won't say you have the best booth because other than you, I think Michael Kay is our most frequent podcast guest, and we love Michael. So I won't say you have the best booth, but I think you have the best pair of analysts, you and Ron Darling. And I know your contract is up. So tell us, please, that you are coming back, and it's not just for 1 year.
Well, we haven't begun negotiations, but we will. And I am not ready to retire. If I do another 3 year, they've always been 3 year deals, and then the 3 year deal will take me to 75. I just turned 72, and I'm ready to do another three. And this team is kind of fun to watch. We'll see, and it's going to be curious to see what transforms in the off season, what they do uh, to what moves. I think they're going to make some moves. I think some people are going to get traded. I mean, it'd be nice to get a number one starter, but where are you going to find that? If you're going to go for Scooble, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. I always say pitching's the name of the game.
Yeah. Uh, Keith, as a way to wrap this up, I wonder, you talked about that you anticipate a lot of movement for the team to try to improve. A lot of coaches got fired from this team, and they're going to change there first. And I just wonder, as a longtime player and a longtime observer, does it matter at all? Obviously they're either the blame, the scapegoat, whatever you want. Does it matter that they're going to do this large transition coaching wise? And are you surprised at all? I mean, I think John and I are a little surprised on the Antoine Richardson thing, just because they stole bases at such a high level this year. And he seemed to be so bonded to Soto in particular. I wonder what you think. Does coaching matter almost to a level where we should care that they did this much transition?
I think the most important coach is your pitching coach, because you got mechanics, and pitchers can be delicate. Uh,
That was very well put. I like that.
so I always felt the pitching coach was the most. Mel Stoudemire was just a terrific pitching coach. He had gravitas, and he knew how to pitch, and he had the respect. And when Mel talked about pitching, you listened. And so I think that's the most important. The second most important coach is the third base coach, because he's the one. I mean, Bobby Valentine was the best third base coach I ever had, and Bud Harrelson. I was surprised because Bud was such a nice guy that I thought Bud would be a little timid when he took over when Bobby left for Texas to manage, and Bud took over at third base. Bud was just as aggressive as Bobby Valentine, and I had complete faith in both those guys. Two great third base coaches. So those are the two. Um, I guess when the team fails, the axe is going to fall. I noticed that the hitting coach whether he came from the Cardinals or that the bench coach. I'm not sure. It looks to me that they're guys with only not major league experience, and I think that this club is heading more towards analytics uh, in their preparation, which is fine. There's good things you can glean from analytics, and but so we'll see. It's unfortunate. I liked all the coaches were great, but they got moved, and it's a new look, and we'll see where it goes.
Well, Keith, as John said earlier, we're hoping that the look in the booth stays exactly the same as it's been for a couple of decades now, because it would mean Keith Hernandez is still part of it. I'm sure that is what's going to happen, and I hope it's never just taken as a thing you say on the way out. Is John and I do appreciate you always joining us. It's always great to chat with you, and we always get great insights. So, Keith, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Okay, this was a tough interview because of the season. We're talking about this disappointing season and where they're going to go forward. And there's going to be some. I think there's going to be some major moves. And I got my eyes and ears to the ground.
Yeah, which means that sometime over the next few months, you're going to get a text message from me or John saying, "Hey, would you like to be on the show again?" So
Of
anyway,
course,
uh,
I'm at your disposal. I am completely. You let me know I'm on.
thanks so much, Keith. We always appreciate it. John and I, of course, thank Keith Hernandez for joining the show. John, from Dodger Stadium, hit or error?
I'm going to give a hit to John Schneider. It was a year ago. I said the Blue Jays aren't very good, or maybe a little over a year and going middle of 2024 season. I didn't like the way they were playing. They've obviously outperformed everybody's expectations. He's obviously motivating them. I think his strategy has been good. Walking Otani worked for a long time in that game. I did think maybe we didn't need a pinch runner for every situation. That lineup that the Blue Jays were throwing out there in the 18 innings at the end of it, and it was not that great. But obviously he's got him here as we do this in a best of three against the LA $400 million LA Dodgers. So I'm going to give John Schneider credit. I feel a little guilty too, so I owe it to him to say something nice. They've had a great season, no matter how this finishes.
Yeah, amen, John. And anybody who sees this is true if you deal with him one on one. But in these big press conferences, he gives great press conference. John Schneider. He's not cliched. He's insightful and interesting, and well spoken on all subjects. This has been a great October for the Blue Jays and for their manager. John, I don't know if it's a hit or error, but I'm going to give it to David Stearns because as we discussed with Keith, this was not a great year for the Mets. Certainly not a great ending for the Mets. And the people who took the brunt of this was the coaching staff, many of whom were key members of a team that went to Game 6 of the NLCS the year before. And in the case of Anton Richardson, I believe the Mets had for a 162 game season the best stolen base percentage in the history of the major leagues. And to a man, a large part of the credit went to Antoine Richardson, their first base coach. Clearly, Juan Soto had affinity for this. Juan Soto is a guy who's going to be around quite a while. If you look at the contract, I think he liked this coach, and the Mets appear like they're not going to have a reunion with him. So, in his big picture plan, for whatever the reasons, to kind of lay this on the coaching staff, we don't think about coaches often. We think about the guy who runs baseball operations and the manager, in this case, Carlos Mendoza. He's changing a lot of coaches. I'd be curious if a year from now we say that's a hit or an error.
Yeah, well, anything associated with the Mets this year, I'm going to give an error to. So, right, whatever they're doing is not working. I'm not surprised they changed coaches. Mendoza's not going anywhere. He had that first great year, and I think everybody likes him very much and respects him. And we knew they're not getting rid of him. They got 3 more years at 10 million, and beyond that, he's been kind of characterized as a genius. So they're not going to get rid of him. He did have that great first year as well. So. But whatever he did the second year, it did not work. It's still working for Milwaukee's team, whatever he set up there. But this year, I don't want to pin it on Montas, but Montas, Minaya, these signings did not work. I don't think those were the coaching staff's fault. We're not shocked that they're the ones that are going. I do think Hefner is a very good pitching coach. He certainly works harder than just about anybody. I'm not sure what happened to the pitching. I don't think their lab must be as great as they make it out to be, but I beyond that, I don't know. But it's been a bad year. And Antoine Richardson, he got so much credit. Even turned Juan Soto into a base stealer. And it's kind of odd that they don't make sure to do what's, keep him somehow. I mean, obviously there has to be a limit. The first base coach probably not going to make $1 million, no matter how good a base running coach he is. So maybe that was it. I don't know. I'm really not sure about it. But to me, it's a negative that he's not coming back.
Yeah, it was a little surprising. Again, we don't think about coaches that often. I'm sorry for that. They're so important. To your point, they all work pretty hard, and I agree with you about how hard Jeremy Hefner worked. But it is an interesting, like how much of this season got laid on them and what the decision will be moving forward. John, on the subject of hard workers, Tommy Hogan, our producer, as always, you and I are all over the country and trying to nail down guests, and Tommy is always a snap of the fingers joining us and helping us through this. So thank you to Tommy Hogan, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Please rate and review us. The New York Post YouTube's sports page. Give us a view because John's background, especially maybe that moment where the police dogs went by sniffing to see if John had brought any contraband into the
Eric, check
ballpark.
me in. I'm already in. It's not me.
There might have been fence climbing. Let's not talk about this, John. Your athleticism well into
Might have been.
might have been. Anyway, John obviously really did go to a lot to get onto the show today on time, so we could fit the thread through the needle and be able to do the show this week. So I thank John as always as my partner in this, and we always appreciate the fans. Please stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman.